And so we have a quality level that I personally, in my 26 years of running restaurants, have never seen, and this is just coming right off the ranch. And so it's an eye-opening experience to want to do this as business to business, but then all of a sudden this quality level is completely changed.
Welcome to the Family Business Connection, a Prairie Family Business Association podcast where we lift up the stories behind family businesses who thrive for generations. I'm your host, Stephanie Larscheid. On Family Business Connection, we explore the topics our family business members request most often: communication, culture, innovation, leadership, strategy, and succession, through hearing from the family business leaders who are solving problems day in and day out and building a legacy for their businesses and their families. In this episode, we welcome Tim Meagher, the Chief Operating Officer and owner of Vanguard Hospitality, the company behind some of the most popular restaurants in the Sioux Falls area, including Minervas, Grille 26, and Morrie Steakhouse. In our conversation, we talked about how the pandemic created massive changes to Vanguard's food suppliers, causing the company to pursue partnerships with local producers, most of whom are family-owned and operated. Not only does Vanguard prioritize the freshest, most sustainable, and seasonal food, they're supporting family farms, family ranchers, and producers. Thanks for joining us in this episode of Family Business Connection. Before we get into my conversation with Tim, here's a word from our sponsor, Thompson Law. We want to say a big thank you to this episode's sponsor, Thompson Law. Thompson Law is an estate planning and business succession law firm that provides expert counsel to many of our Prairie Family business members. Once families engage with Thompson Law, they tell us a weight has been lifted off their shoulders. Thompson Law is a top law firm for family-owned businesses, farms and ranches, trusts, asset protection, and so much more. Visit cathompsonlaw.com for more information. Well, welcome, Tim Meagher of Vanguard Hospitality. We're really happy to have this conversation about your family business and the family businesses you work with. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Talk to us a bit about Vanguard. You have been a member of Prairie Family Business Association for several years. You have family involved in your ownership. Describe who Vanguard is.
So on the ownership side, there's three of us. My brother-in-law, Mike Jurnas, and my other partner that I worked with in our previous company, Ken Bayshore.
And then you and your spouse, Megan, so you have three ownership groups involved in Vanguard Hospitality.
Yep.
And tell us about the restaurants you own.
We have Morrie Steakhouse right on the edge of I-29 in Sioux Falls. Grille 26 in the center of town. That's more of your neighborhood restaurant. And Minervas, the original Minervas downtown that started in 1977. That serves the downtown area of guests.
So you yourselves are a family business, which many restaurants in the country end up being family-owned, family-operated, and it's a whole nother layer of complexity when you're in the hospitality and service and restaurant business, and you're in the midst of that every day, trying to manage the three restaurants, your team, your staff, your relationships with your fellow owners, and then what's very unique and why we're talking today is the relationships that you have with your producers, who end up being on your menu. So what is that experience like, being in the midst of family and business and operations every day?
It is dynamic, and I think as we get older, you learn to become more flexible in patience and understanding and your ability to communicate is super important.
Yeah, and something that you do with a lot of different types of people.
Yeah, with the producer side of things, it's like basically I grew my best friends page by 25 more people, and they truly become, friends and relationships. And, with that is, metaphorically like a seed, it needs to be nurtured. You need to have clear communication on expectations. It becomes personal. You learn about each other's families, and there's as the years start to tack on, you see how each other's businesses are growing, and more questions around helping each other grow, and how are we growing forward, or just rooting each other on when we're diversifying our business, in myriad of different ways that our producers are, and it becomes more of a collective, or like a sub-community.
And I think that's unique about what you're developing and have developed over the last several years. And that's why we're having this conversation today, is a lot about the relationships that you've built and been intentional about. And so it all goes back to 2020, when we're in the midst of the pandemic and food supply is a big challenge.
Yeah.
So talk about how these relationships started in the first place, your why behind it.
So we had this skeleton of like a 10-year plan to go this direction anyway. We had a couple of run-ins with the supply chain, and I could see how that affected your rancher, specifically the rancher first, when we were getting focused. And so with Hadrick Ranch in Falkton, they're very knowledgeable on that side of the food system at the very beginning. And so when we started to connect, I had a better understanding of what truly was happening. And what that did is expose the need for us to collectively in our communities work together, to put it like easy. And what that meant to having control through interdependence. When a supply chain breaks down or falls apart, it also exposed how much we depend on importing into our state, which we're an agricultural state. And so there's some illusions that about how we buy food that kind of popped. And it's like, oh, okay, so there's a huge opportunity to grow together simply for, on the consumer side, simply to have high quality products available, and also protect the community side of, what happens when the truck can't get to you. And ultimately, that's what we suffered through with starting with toilet paper into ham and several other things. And, my hope is that average Joe and Jane on the consumer side, like myself, see the importance of continuing that connection and supporting that, because you're not only supporting the family business, but your own health, because nutrient density, as an example, declines as it's shipped from Peru, and if your farmer is picking it that day, you get the majority of that nutrient density, which helps you and your family.
And it all goes back to quality, which is a big piece of it. And now you're able to control or monitor the quality, because you know where the beef was raised, and you saw the people who raised it and how they raised it, and how it's getting to your locations, where then you can deliver it to your consumers. And the whole cycle is just powerful.
It is, and at the beginning, it was a little bit of raw spite that we drove to get our beef. But then we saw how much this impacts the quality. So to give in a reference to what I'm saying is, you might read a sell sheet from a company that says all the great things that they do. Here's what to expect in quality, great bullet points. And then you go see it for yourself, and you get the product. And you're like, wow. So for us, let's talk about prime. Prime beef is something everybody loves to have, and high quality. and to get there is very difficult on the producer side. And so for us, we bypassed this like a company corporate marketing plans that tell you what you're going to get, and now we've exceeded that through working together. And so we have a quality level that I personally, in my 26 years of running restaurants, have never seen, and this is just coming right off the ranch. And so it's an eye-opening experience to want to do this as business to business, but then all of a sudden this quality level is completely changed. And so what that does, like on my end, is having consistent pricing. So we only review pricing when an input goes up, as an example, corn. So I get like a 6 months heads up on that, and I can plan for that in my business. So I bought myself time, and we all know how much time is worth. And so an agreed upon pricing plus buying yourself time and being able to see into the future is the exact opposite of what happens in my industry, which is highly dependent upon your vendor. And you, on the beef side of things, I can barely see into the next week, and I'm at the mercy of what happens. So I've basically taken, and in the pandemic, to give you an example, and this is not an exaggeration, Monday when we place our order, New York strips are $7.50 a pound. Thursday when I place my order, they're $12.50. I can't take that to a guest. I can't take that level of cost increase to a guest, and that's not even taking into consideration the yield. So it's not $5 more a pound. It's like $8 more a pound, and so there's an unfairness that comes with that too. Whereas we've bypassed all of that, so I have less stress, and the only stress that we have is the interdependence on knowing each other's business well enough that we can say, hey, I can see that road's going to get ripped up outside of my business. I'll probably have a decrease in sales, and planning for that to basically put yourself in each other's shoes, because you're not taking care of your business, you're also taking care of their business through your own knowledge of what you see, and that has to be communicated often, and it's seen outside of your own desk, basically. So going from click buy, truck shows up the next day, I have no idea what my stuff's going to cost, and I deal with that fallout, and what that does is it'll send you into a tailspin, and this will probably resonate with restaurateurs. And you call your salesman, they call their manager, somebody with some sort of executive will call you, and it just prolongs the cycle and nothing gets solved. So we've basically taken that in our own hands through doing this.
And more work, but more rewarding and more fulfilling, knowing where those products are coming from. And I know when I go into your restaurant now, I see that listed on your menu. Here's the relationships. Here's where your product's coming from. And I think it gives everyone involved a lot of pride and a lot of satisfaction. So
one of the things, yes, on that, and one of the things too that we're doing is normalizing creating partnerships. And so basically, to be at our guest or a restaurant, we're not asking you to do anything other than what you always do. Come in, enjoy your food, hopefully, and you've just supported 1 to 3 businesses privately, and had a healthier meal just by doing what you've always done. And then my hope is having all those producers listed, and like I self-evaluate in my own family, and it's like what was one more step further that our family can take, and that's what we have that QR code on there, because basically it's transparency from start to finish. Is if you like what you had here, go buy it from them, because on the protein side of things, very very expensive, and there's a lot of hesitation around buying like a quarter of a cow, and I always imagine is, what if somebody who's never done that before does that, and then they have a bad experience for, let's say, quality, and then they never do that again. So there's a responsibility for all of us to make sure that our businesses are communicating, quality levels and those types of things, but we're building future connections by taking the responsibility of being high quality and the best that we can do in our own areas, and that creates a great experience. So our producers are also understanding what it means on the restaurant side too.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And you talk about these producers. Mm-hmm. They are local, they are regional, mm-hmm. they are most, if not all, family owned.
Yes.
And when we just recently released a study that states that South Dakota has the highest percentage of family owned businesses in the country.
Oh, wow.
And we are at the top of the list. And that is in large part because of the farms and ranches within the state of South Dakota. Family owned, family operated, multi-generation. And that's what we're trying to do with Prairie Family Business, is help them mm-hmm. remain family owned and operated for generations to come. And you're a piece of that puzzle at Vanguard, helping to embrace and grow their business, expose their business in a really good way for all that is beneficial for all involved.
Right. Yes, I completely agree.
When we talk about the producer relationships, you've even been able to develop relationships with the next generation of the producers.
Yeah.
So you might be dealing with mom and dad or grandpa or grandma, and now you're dealing with son and daughter. Mm-hmm. Talk about that experience.
It was interesting. The first thing that comes to mind is when Hadrick Ranch brought their daughters down, and they took them out of school, and they made their first delivery to Minervas, and he's like, we took them out of school, we're gonna have dinner at Morrie's. And I was like, wow, that's kind of a lot of work. And when I listened to how monumental that was for their transition into direct to wholesale, let's say, they spent 4 generations only doing, I shouldn't say only, but doing what they've always done, which, they sell into, they have high quality cattle, so they sell into certified Angus beef and on the top tiers of those, and to transition to a scary unknown, which is this restaurant's gonna buy our cattle. It's but they took their daughters out because they wanted them to see, for the future of their ranch, we're going to hand you down what it is that we have learned, but in some form of framework in the future for you, you're probably going to have to make a decision that feels like a large pivot, deepening, with the hope of deepening your business and the safety of the business. Let's take on the risk side by being diverse. And, what it is that they knew, this is what I observed, is what it is that they knew about their own ranch. There's suddenly they looked at it from a different light. And there's one specific time when Hadrick was in, they brought some friends, and we had some beef, some Japanese beef in the back that's not family owned, but we were cutting it up, and we invited them to come back and sample out just our normal sampling thing that we do. And I saw Reese look over at her mom's friend, and say, "Oh, this is normal. We just," it's like VIP status, going back in the kitchen and sampling, but seeing that connection, because they're, when you can see further, or you can see what you have always known in a different light, that leaves so much room for opportunity to, let's say, think creatively when it comes to deepening some part of your business, in a different way.
And it's innovation. And that is so necessary when you transition generations and you become fifth or sixth generation, and it's not the same business, and it can't be the same business model that it was early on. It needs to evolve and change and be innovative, and for all generations to embrace that innovation along the way and demonstrate it. And that's huge. You're doing it in your own business, and you're seeing your producers do it as well. And they're going to set themselves up for generational success because of it. It's very powerful. We had a very successful Taste of Family business event that we partnered with you at Vanguard on, and that was an opportunity for Prairie Family Business to showcase what it means to be a producer and consumer of family business products. Just a huge success. And to have those producers in the room with you and with their consumers and with other family businesses, where we're all trying to figure this out, what the future looks like and how we're going to be a successful business for the next 50 or 100 years. What does that event, the Taste of Family Business, mean to you?
It signifies, let's see, how do I put this into words? To me, it signifies conditioning, like as an example to the word conditioning, it's doing what you've always done because that's what you know and not questioning it. So abandoning that through questioning how you can get better or how you can diversify. Like what I saw in the room and what I've seen over the last 3 years is, when more people come to the table on the producer side that we're directly affected with or affected by, these individuals have let go of the idea of competition between producers, like looking at your neighbor as competition. And why does that matter? Well, it allows community to thrive. Because if you're subscribing to a preconditioned idea of something and then you never entertain another way of thinking, that can hinder your business. And for me, especially now, on an abundance mindset is we can all win, and we can win harder if we work together. Even if you're in an adjacent industry or whatever, or not even in the same industry, you might help somebody simply by giving perspective. It could be that simple. And what I love is seeing producers give each other's perspective, even if they don't grow or raise the same thing, or even if they do. The producers that we work with are confident in their own businesses and are so integrated in what they do. Some of those ideas of competition or I don't have enough, I got to protect myself, those are all gone, and they don't exist, and we're all in it to win it in a sense. And that's the foundation of strengthening a community. It's like a trampoline effect. The more springs you put on it, the more weight it can hold.
And it's what we do through Prairie Family Business is create that community and that support for one another, that, hey, your solution might not be the exact same as mine, but let me tell you what my experiences are, and you can learn from them and take your own route and be there for one another. One of the powerful things about the Taste of Family Business event was that your producers were in the room. Several of them had their next generation in the room with them to experience that. And you had your own next generation there as well, helping serve at the event. Yeah,
that's so on the business side too, and then my son came later. On the business side, the generation below us, and then below that, they care about all these things. And if you're going to spend your time working, let's say, what does it mean? And I hear the grumblings of that question in regards to millennials and different things over the years and in the younger generations. But what they're really saying is how can you help me understand the value of my time by what I'm doing? And if you want to be a successful business, you have to answer that question the best that you can. And if you can't answer that question, then maybe that's a good opportunity for you as a business to then deepen the meaningful side or that mission statement of what are you going for and why.
And embracing your values in that
Yeah.
next generation and what it means to be in business, and not going home at night and griping about the business concerns, but instead look at this powerful experience that we've created and these lasting relationships and what that's doing not only for our household and our family and you as the next generation, but our whole community. It's really powerful. And one of the things that we do for families is we can help conduct a family meeting for them and give them some recommendations moving forward on how their business can remain a lasting business, how the family can create better communication and harmony. And I know that there are several families within Prairie Family Business that have had those meetings at Morrie's.
Yeah.
And their family meeting is there. And so not only are you creating, this business to business relationship or business to consumer, but you're also creating this experience for these families to have healthy conversation as well.
That's a great comment, is the healthy conversation, because that is productive conversation. And so I'm going to link my next comment to the COVID thing again. And one of the questions that helped guide us through COVID in these last 4 years, which we're still doing, is I remember sitting around a table at one of our restaurants, and the management team's like, what are we going to do? Like, we might have to, lay off our entire team. And this was on a Thursday when it was really going down. And are we going to be able to be open? All these questions. And it's like, as a business owner, you're sitting there going, wow, I am faced with the unknown, and yet I still have to give some sort of guidance here. And I remember the question that came out at this table was, well, how can we incorporate hospitality when we can't be there? And I said, let's think of that. And then the inevitable happened, and we had to lay off, 170 employees. And then you went into that time of the uncertainty, and you're hobbling around as a business, and you can let it drown you, or what can you do? What can you focus on? And so we came back to that table, and I said, how can we bring the hospitality when we can't be there? And I said, let's spend the equity that we have with our guests and just focus on that. And if we go down in flames, we go down in flames, whatever. And so instances, hospitality is in our name, and what does that mean? It's like, well, let's put that into action. So examples would be, every week we would call up a regular guest that we weren't seeing and to-go orders, and if they, were not leaving the house or had safety concerns or whatever, we would just deliver them meal on us. To going as far as to handing, and I'm not going to say which place this is, but handing a meal and a alcoholic drink, well packaged, through the window at a retirement home. And we did that every week, just so she knew that we were thinking about her, and the family, it resonated with the family, but it made us feel good too. It's like, okay, we're doing something when you can do nothing. So, how can we bring hospitality when we can't be there? Helped guide us, and was incredibly rewarding, because what we also did was strengthen our relationships with the people that we serve in a different way, at the same time as how are we going to get better coming out of this. So those two things we still use, and they were incredibly helpful. And to focus on one or two things through a very difficult time, and it might be myriad of situations, was incredibly helpful to stay focused and stay positive, and find meaningful reward in the things that you do every day that keep your spirits up, But we created deeper relationships, and it's amazing.
And I'm sure those people are still extremely loyal to you,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
with that going above and beyond factor, that's who you are, and that's what your values
Yeah.
are. and what you're instilling in your next generation as well. And I give you a lot of credit for what you're doing in your industry and the relationships you've developed with your producers, but also with some regional associations that you've taken an interest and a heart in, that are outside of your daily scope of work, but you care so much about the end result and what farmers and ranchers are dealing with. And I know that a lot of that's you, and a lot of it's your wife Megan growing up in an agriculture family, and your brother-in-law and what they experienced growing up in rural South Dakota and having family with farms. That's what it's all about, and they understand it. And as an Iowa farm girl myself, I greatly appreciate what that does for farmers and ranchers, and shows them the innovation and the connectedness that they can have in their next generation and make it work and be successful as a family business.
Yeah.
We've reached the part of our conversation where we have our Family Business 5, and we have 5 questions that we ask all of our guests. And so to start us off, Tim, what's a book that's greatly influenced your life?
It was from this Buddhist monk, Zen and Art of Saving the Earth. What I found valuable about that book was he was an activist through the 60s and 70s, and was like kicked out of his country for speaking out against the war and speaking for peace, and in the Vietnam War. And so it's like, how do you face, the question I have going into that book was, how do you face adversity and remain compassionate and with an abundance mindset, keeping like love in your left hand and compassion in your right hand, and going into difficult situations with difficult conversations, and addressing these things that affect all of us at the same time you're addressing the things that affect you, or whatever that is. And that I still go back to that book. It's been incredibly insightful, and it's helped me question my own ways of thinking, and approaching it from a place of that things can work, and you trust outcomes, but you do it from a place of understanding. So it's a fairly deep book, and but it was incredibly valuable, and still is.
I see that playing out in your philosophy of how you do business in life. Through Prairie Family Business Association, what program or experience has provided the most value to you?
The taste was incredibly valuable. I also pick people's brains. So while we're like serving the food, and all our producers are getting together and meeting other people, just my friends and acquaintances that attend all of these seminars that the Prairie Family Business puts on, I get to also ask a lot of questions, and that leads me back to you, and then I get connected to more people. And so that's the one thing that I speak about in regards to this association is it's not a one and done thing. There's so many layers to the benefits that come with it. And often or not, I give you a phone call and I'm like, hey, I don't know exactly what I'm looking for here, but I need to be connected to somebody in this area. And the people that are connected to the Prairie Family Business are like salt of the earth. So it's open with welcoming in all areas, and so learn execution in your business, but then deepening relationships, and when you do that, you have access to perspectives.
And that community creation and being there for one another is what we're all about, and you've truly experienced that.
Yes.
Looking back on Vanguard Hospitality and the family business unit, what do you most attribute your success to, or what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of what I feel has paid off is challenging what we think we know and why we think we know it. And from that, gaining clarity on why we make decisions that we do. I would say, what's most attributed to is not making decisions, or I would say, reframe that, making decisions where you know that you're doing it with your best intent, and your business is executing in the best way that you can. So it's doing your best. And that feels like a stretching comment because, there's areas we can all do better. But I think when you intentionally try and do your best and you stretch that, I feel like that's attributed to our success, because on the other side of that, there was no, when I'm thinking about that question, there was no like window into what was going to happen. You had to kind of trust that, for the business, we're making this hard decision, a little bit scary. We're pushing into a place we haven't gone. And then I'd say more often than not, it turns out to be a great thing. So then it also reinforces like, maybe we shouldn't always do what we've always done.
Mm-hmm. Let's try something a little different.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
see
And
what happens.
that's good as long as we're well thought out.
Mm-hmm. Who's someone from outside Vanguard Hospitality who's been instrumental to your success?
To be honest, I would say my personal counselor. I invest heavily in my mental health simply because I lead people. And, when you're in a family business, it can quickly, you're like, can't see the forest from the trees. And having somebody outside your business, call you out on stuff is good. But that's not family that can help you process through. You talked about healthy conversations, instrumental, 100-fold. So, and I think especially on our side of the industry and the agricultural side, like mental health is incredibly paramount, and practicing that so you can see clearly and you're making the best decisions for everybody involved. And it's a lot of responsibility. And I think anything you can do to create an environment for yourself where you can see clearly in a healthy way, it allows you to love your family deeper and also provide the best guidance for your teams, because you've worked on yourself to make sure that and taking care of yourself to make sure that can happen.
I'm glad you shared that, and I think that's so powerful for business owners and business leaders, because you're often on an island, and there aren't a lot of people that you can turn to and process things with. And as a leader of a business, that's very important. Also, I had a conversation earlier today. It's so important with that senior generation as well, who are perhaps stepping away from a day-to-day role and entering a different phase of life and business that's not the same as it has been for the last 40 or 50 years, and how important it can be to talk with a counselor or a coach when you're in that stage of life, working on what's next.
It's a safe environment for you, because no one's going to give you, that person's not going to give you an opinion based on the fact that they've known you for 20 years. They have your outcomes of your relationships at the forefront of their skill set, and it's an invaluable adjacent thing that I would recommend everybody would invest in. But when you reference, the first thing that comes to mind when you reference a transition, and what happens when you don't have the same purpose you used to every day you wake up. That's hard for people to put, especially on the agricultural side. Like, do I matter anymore? Or those kinds of questions like, do you need me like you used to? The next generation takes over, and I think giving yourself access to help your transition, and B, taking into consideration, if you're the younger generation, what your parents might be going through, or an uncle, or whatever that is, and then utilizing them as a resource, as well as supporting them, because that's when your whole life has been spent with the intention of doing one thing, and there's less of that now. That's going to affect people more than they probably can prepare for, I would imagine. So
very much so. One of our sponsors, Generation 6, has a new book coming out. Andrew Kite is writing one on mental health in family business and family operations. That will be really helpful for many families at any stage. And our last question, what's a lesson learned from a family member that has really stuck with you?
Oh, man. My wife told me one time, not too far in the past, can you stop coming to the table thinking that you're always right? It was like, okay. But it was, I don't know if that was a lesson, but it like triggered a self-reflection. It's like, oh, am I coming to the table that way? And where I can see it, I'm like, all right, that was an instance, and I asked for help. I'm like, can you point this out? Because I'm not seeing exactly what, and that's another way to utilize a close relationship is if you're trying to bring the best to the order or the best good to the order, utilizing an adjacent relationship to, say the hard stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and it's usually from the people who know you best and
Yeah.
who are in close proximity with you every day.
Yes.
That's great. Well, Tim, this has been a great conversation, really helpful for family businesses at any stage, and especially family farms and ranchers and those who are operating in agriculture. Thank you so much for the work that you do.
You're welcome, yeah.
And the community you build and the relationships that you continue to nurture.
Thank you.
And on that note, we've reached the end of our episode. Thank you to Tim for sharing his story of how Vanguard navigated massive change that ultimately transformed how their family business secured their food supply by investing in local partners. Did you know what one of our highest rated programs is? Live case studies. In a live case study, your family will work with a team of professional advisors who have expertise working with family businesses to analyze your family business and provide you with a roadmap for the future of your business tailored to each of your family members. Participation in a live case study is a no-cost benefit of membership to Prairie Family Business Association. Learn more about the live case study process and read how they've impacted other family businesses at the link in the show notes. Thanks again for joining us today. Our inaugural season of the Family Business Connection will be 10 episodes featuring stories of all kinds of family business leaders. Be sure to follow or subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts.